might look at the feature list and think, who even needs that? I've never even thought about wanting that. But it's pretty well designed. It's designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you comfortable. I mean, everything from the hot tub to a massage chair downstairs in the theater. It's just a nice place to be, and it allows you to stay at your best so that you can be productive. I have people ask me, a number of people asked me when we moved into this house, they looked at the size of it, and they said, well, this is your forever home, right? No, honestly, I'm 34. I hope to scale up further from here. I think it's only natural that somebody would, right?
Yeah. What is up, YouTube? You're in for a special treat today. I'm here at the Kepler residence. Thank you, Jon, for letting us drop by. And this space to me is just such a special space because it's always inspiring to come here. Your house is absolutely beautiful, Jon, but even more so, I love the story behind it. So I thought in today's video, let's do a tour of your home, but even more so, let's talk about what the home represents, bigger picture, right? So my understanding is when you originally committed to buying this home, it was outside of your comfort zone.
Thank you. Well, yeah, at the end of the day, you don't want to overspend on certain things. You don't want to make financial decisions that are just maybe less than necessary, right? Unless they can be justified. I remember when we bought my last house about 5 or 6 years ago. I remember standing on the front lawn and kind of planning to make an offer and go firm on the offer. And I thought, do I need this? I mean, I can park outside. I don't need a garage. Why am I upsizing in the first place? I have enough space. And ultimately what it comes down to is beyond enjoying life, it's important to find things that work for you, and it's important to consume things that you value that allow you to grow, allow you to wake up every day inspired, and to keep various aspects of your life in proper perspective with the size of your business and what you're working on, right? It doesn't make sense to buy a car that doesn't work for you if you need a different type of car, and it just made sense to move into a property like this and to a sense be inspired by the property, but just live the lifestyle that we wanted in the environment we wanted so that we could wake up happy and be as productive as possible.
Yeah, I love it. Let's start the tour while we're talking further about the house. So just kind of break down for us, how did you originally even discover the idea of the house? Had you been shopping for a while for properties like this, or how did this all come together?
So I'd been looking casually for quite some time, about 2 years. We looked at a house, I'd say 3 years ago, and it just had an enormous property tax bill. It was spectacular. It was 17,000 square feet. It was great, but it wasn't the right house and it wasn't the right time. So I always kept my eyes open. There was another house that we looked at. It was dated, needed some work. It didn't check all the boxes even though it was sizable. And so we saw this house for sale. We thought about it for a little while, didn't immediately go see it, let it lag on the market for a little bit. And then once we saw it, just standing here, just being here in person, we realized that this is where we wanted to live. I'll never forget, we left the showing. I sat in the car with Alicia and I said, before I start, what are your objections? She said, well, I don't really have any. And I thought, well, I don't really have any. So I guess we're going to try to figure this out. And so that's when I thought about how we could really level up and what it would take to actually pull this off. And then it was just hard work and pencil sharpening, right? Trying to decide how we could pull this off, how much of a reach would it be, and how justified it would be.
Yeah, I love it. And so what does it mean to you every day now to wake up in this beautiful home?
Well, it sounds cliche, but we really are just really happy. I can't emphasize enough how this house solved a number of problems. First of all, location. We've talked in other videos about how we used to live very close to our investment properties, and it made a lot of sense for us to put some distance between us and the investments. So even in terms of managing my desire to micromanage, right?
Yeah.
So now we're farther away from the house. We have people in place who take care of certain things. Farther away from the properties, right? Also, we leave this house a little less often. I'm not always running to properties, not doing my own Home Depot runs, that sort of thing. So it's nicer to be here and be able to focus on what matters, spend time my phone, with my computer, working on some of the bigger aspects of our business. And it's just a lot more calm in general, right? And it's a beautiful place that honestly allows us to feel taken care of. So we can go around and I'll show you some of the other amenities, but this house really takes care of you. You don't really realize it until you live in it and use it. You might look at the feature list and think, who even needs that? I've never even thought about wanting that. But it's pretty well designed. It's designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you comfortable. I mean, everything from the hot tub to a massage chair downstairs in the theater. It's just a nice place to be, and it allows you to stay at your best so that you can be productive.
Love it. And so I think it's important for the audience to understand as well that this wasn't overnight, right? You've been investing in real estate. You've been trying to build a portfolio for quite a while. How long have you been doing real estate?
So I bought my first home in 2007, so it's now 2020, so I suppose that's 13 years or so. Lived in that first house for 7 years, lived with roommates, had as many as 3 roommates there, and not perfect roommates either. So there were a lot of sacrifices that were going on for quite some time. At the end of the day, it's just something that you build on. So bought the first house, built some equity, refinanced it a bit, allowed that to move us into the second house, and then 5 more years there, 5 or 6 more years there. And anyhow, you build, right? So this is not exactly something you can get into from day number 1, but once you build up and kind of get used to what it's like to scale up slowly over time, and it makes more sense.
I love it. And so I'm suspecting or assuming, but buying that first rental property, buying the first mixed-use commercial building, all those items were outside of your comfort zone as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Each one was just a step along the journey of just evolving who Jon Kepler is.
Continually, I can't emphasize that enough, continually being outside of your comfort zone. It's amazing how, looking back, there are certain things I did that I now think were relatively reasonable, or things that I wouldn't even blink at doing today. But it was all a little uncomfortable. I've been reaching my whole career. It's just nothing but reaching all the way through. Yeah,
and I think it's really important for the audience at home to understand that. Like, neither myself nor Jon were groomed from day one to become real estate investors. It really was just a passion and a drive that got you to this point, that got me to my point with my rental properties. And it's just, I really want everyone at home to understand that, like, consistent actions do pay off, and then consistently being outside your comfort zone is so critical if you want to grow as a human being, right? And so I love the fact that you didn't just, a lot of people would think that they would stop once they hit your level, right? Once they have 160 tenants to manage, once they're their local city's second largest landlord, all those different numbers that we could drop here. But each one of those was just one more step outside of your comfort zone, just like this house represents an additional step outside of your comfort zone. Exactly. It's all about continual growth. I have people ask me, a number of people asked me when we moved into this house, they looked at the size of it, and they said, well, this is your forever home, right? No, honestly, I'm 34. I hope to scale up further from here. I think it's only natural that somebody would, right? Yeah. Yeah, at the end of the day, it is all about growth. It's about achieving your goals, doing what you want to do. And, it's interesting. I don't think I accurately kept track of how well I was doing throughout the years. Yeah. I remember I was watching a video, and Kevin O'Leary from Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary was saying that what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to find something that you're good at, and you're supposed to keep your head down, keep your nose in the work, and you're supposed to get rich without noticing. And I thought, that's preposterous. I'm looking at my cash on hand every day. I'm updating my net worth statement every month or every quarter. I know exactly how well I'm doing. But then when it came time to put an offer on this house, and I really had to sit down and consider how we were going to arrange the financing and basically move money around as well to ensure that the right funds were in the right spots at the right times, I realized that we actually had more of a reserve than we thought. We had more dry powder. And I wasn't feeling it. I mean, as it turns out, especially in the 2 years before we bought the house, there were a lot of things going exceedingly right. And I mean, my accounting showed that for the most part in terms of the cash flow, but some of the equity building, especially some of the increases in value that we were able to achieve by strategically renovating, I wasn't fully counting it. And then when you really look at it, you
you get the appraiser over and you really check everything out. I wasn't counting correctly. And the worst thing is, of course it's a fun feeling. Oh, I have more than I thought, it's great. Like Scotiabank says you're richer than you think, whatever. The thing is, I was being negatively affected in life for about 2 years because I didn't actually realize, I didn't give myself credit for the good things that were happening until I really took the time to look and really cashed it in. I think that I probably could have performed even better over that 2-year period if I realized how beneficial some of the decisions I was making would turn out to be. And I mean, during that period, it was such an interesting period because there was so much work, there was so much growth, and I didn't fully realize it, and then I allowed a certain amount of negativity into my life because I didn't realize it. I thought, am I getting paid enough for this? Am I going to be able to continue growing? I'd look at some metrics that said I was growing a lot and other metrics that I wasn't sure I was. And I just wish that I'd been able to see this coming a little more. I should have accurately added up how we were doing and understanding that if you're going to grow a certain amount every year, if you're going to hit your targets and meet your percentages, then to a certain degree, things you want at a certain price point are inevitable if they're priorities.
Yeah. And so for the audience, we're just coming in now to the master wing. 1, hashtag goals. I eventually want to have a master wing to my house. But again, I'd love to just chat further about the idea of constantly pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. So for someone that's like maybe watching this at home, I think it's important to understand that oftentimes what gets us into that first rental property, those skills, that sort of like often frugality that we implement at that stage isn't necessarily what's going to get you to then this stage as a real estate investor. Well,
everything is a process, and strategies that work for a period of time are not necessarily supposed to work until the end of time. We've talked in other videos, you should click through Matt's channel and look at some of the others. We've talked in other videos about how I used to be an extremely hands-on property manager. As a micromanager, I was always on top of things. Tenants had my address. I lived right in the middle of our collection of investment properties so that I could go to every one in 5 or 10 minutes. And that was great, and now that's over. I have flipped the switch. I look at things in exactly the opposite manner in which I used to, and that was a phase in life. It was positive, it was worthwhile. Now it's complete, and so we've moved to a different phase where I'm more hands-off, living honestly the life of my dreams. I'm very happy here. So we're happy with the house. Some of the frustrations I used to have, living with roommates, having those roommates do things they shouldn't be doing, those days are over, right? I put in the time, I put in the discomfort, frankly. And while we continue to stretch our goals and remain uncomfortable, it's a type of discomfort that I've chosen. It's a type of discomfort that's evolved over the last 10 plus years.
Yeah, I love it. And another kind of myth I'd like to dispel for the audience at home is when you're kind of like, when you're taking on these big aspirational goals of a house this beautiful, this size, this significant, I think a lot of people think that the way it happens is you save up every penny and then you buy this house in cash. But my opinion, and I'd love to get your perspective on this, John, is that realistically, if you were to wait out and try and buy this in cash rather than like finance it just like you'd finance any other investment property or property you're going to buy, is that like you'll never get there. Because there's always another thing for that money, there's always another use. And so we really do sometimes have to like push ourselves outside of that comfort zone and just commit to it. And so I don't know, I'd love, just get your opinion on that.
Well, there are a few secrets in the market, maybe in every market across the business sector, but there are secrets that people just don't understand because there isn't any interest in sharing them. And one thing that luxury realtors or other people in the top end of the luxury market don't really share is that a lot of the owners who are in these houses did not pay current market prices for these houses. So when you see a house for millions of dollars, that person didn't pay millions of dollars. You see houses larger than this one, you see houses for tens of millions of dollars on realtor.ca. The people aren't in them for that much. And so these houses don't trade hands that often, and they don't always go for top dollar, right? They can be a difficult sell. And ultimately, I mean, I believe in debt anyway. I believe in leveraging, and especially when you're getting money at reasonable or somewhat reasonable rates. The rate on this, of course, I wish it was lower, but at the end of the day, we're doing very well in the market. I'm very happy with the deal. It was good value for us. And people need to understand, it's an exaggeration to say that this is easily attainable, but it is something that can be chewed through. So break it down into steps, right? I mean, whether I was thinking of it this way or not, by buying the first house that I lived in, then buying the second house that I lived in, and then this house, that is breaking it into steps, right?
Yeah.
And it's also breaking into steps in dozens of different ways. Beyond the financials of it all, it's learning to live in a certain space of a certain size, learning the limitations of that space, even learning to accept. We could talk about kind of personal platitudes like, do I deserve this, or should I be here, or is this justifiable? But even just getting comfortable with the level of space, saying to myself, I am worth it, or I have achieved it, or now's the time to achieve it, earned it. I think it took me some time. It took me a little bit of time to understand that this was absolutely the path for me and that I was going to be able to commit to it fully. When it comes down to square footage, our old house was fairly large. It was about 5,000 square feet in total, including some finished space in the basement, and you wouldn't think that would be limiting, right? But then you would think, how much more space than that do I need? When I looked at this house, of course, I was dazed and confused after the first time I saw it, right? You walk through it, even on the second walk through, where we took, I think, 80 photos, 100 photos. They were very accommodating. It was still really hard to understand everything that was going on here, right? And once I started looking at the numbers, I thought, this house is over 10,000 square feet. Like, that's a lot. Or, how much is it? And so, of course, you Google, like, what's a typical size? What's a median size? One stat the viewers might find interesting, it's bigger than Kris Jenner's house, so the Kardashian mom, so we're living in a bigger scale than, or at least on the Kardashian scale. Bigger than Kris, but Kim and Kanye have one bigger than this. So, but in that realm, so then you think, is this justifiable? Is this stupid? Am I worth it? Is this something that is acceptable, or could it cost me credibility? But at the end of the day, now since we moved in and we're familiar with it, and I know where everything is, and I'm getting comfortable being here, it's incredibly rewarding. And I don't think people talk about that as much as they could, or as much as they should. I think that success is welcomed in society up to a certain limit, and then beyond that, people begin to have reservations. I think that to a certain degree, people have been very supportive of us living here, our friends and family and so on. You wonder if perhaps there'd be less support if everyone was sort of aware of what the place actually costs, or how big it actually is. Sometimes if I have someone over and I don't want to overwhelm them, I'll just cut parts of it off and just kind of show them smaller parts of it. And it is something you could worry about, but I think that an example of personal growth is also getting comfortable with that as well, and understanding that you got to do what works for you.
I love that. Well, we still got a lot of house to check out, so let's run downstairs. All right, now we're obviously in the home theater. This is an amazing space. This is something I've always really wanted. But before we continue the tour, Jon, I'd love to just chat briefly about, again, how this all came together. So my business partner, Jeff Weibel, loves the saying, ready, shoot, aim. And to me, that really encompasses what you did here as well, right? So like you stepped outside of your comfort zone. You knew you could pull it off, but you kind of had to like burn the ships, burn the boat in order to like really force yourself to get into it.
Yeah, definitely. There was quite a bit of that. We put an offer on the house. We weren't sure if it would get accepted. Of course, as with any purchase, right? So you have a conditional period, you go out, you shop for financing. But beyond that, we had to liquidate we had to free up quite a bit of cash. We didn't liquidate, to be clear, we didn't liquidate any of our holdings, keep all the apartments. But we had to ensure that we had quite a bit of cash on hand and in the lawyer's trust account in order to make sure that we could close on this. And so there was an exact period of time in which we had to get it done, and there were a number of deals, refinancings that just had to happen. We had to make sure that all the money was in the right spot at the right time, and there would be consequences if we got it wrong. And we made guarantees that we would have all the funds in the right places at the right time. So we absolutely, without question, we had to fully commit and do whatever it takes.
Yeah, I love it, because again, it's just so important for the viewers at home to understand that if you wait until you're ready to do something, you'll often find that you'll never become ready.
Exactly.
And so I think that it's constantly like just slightly overcommitting is what creates the most growth, in my opinion. Oftentimes when I've committed, whether it's to a real estate deal, a business, or a business partner or transaction, I often need to like just slightly overcommit if I really want to reap, I guess, the greatest rewards from my efforts, because it can be really easy when you have a successful business model or situation to just want to double down on that. But what ends up happening is, you know, is one more duplex going to move the needle once you have 10 or 20 duplexes? I would argue no. It's then now you want to start buying a portfolio of properties, or maybe you want to move into apartment buildings or large multifamilies, or, you know, just constantly like getting outside of our comfort zone. That's where growth happens, guys. But let's kind of keep the tour going. So we still got a lot more house to check out. But again, I'm so jealous. This is absolutely amazing. Our next mansion's going to need a theater room.
For sure.
Were you always comfortable getting uncomfortable and stepping outside of your comfort zone? Is there like a certain book or mentor or something that really sparked your thinking larger and committing larger?
Well, I think you should consider the alternative. What happens if you don't?
Yeah.
You're going to age anyway. I think, well, every year I've created soft targets for what I wanted to achieve or what I wanted to hit.
Yeah.
And you know you're going to be that year older. You know you're going to be that year farther along whether you like it or not. So I feel like the progress is important, right? It really isn't a choice. If you think about it, time moves along. In terms of authors, there are too many to name. Like many people, I read Robert Kiyosaki's book at the beginning, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think a lot of people have read that. Beyond that, I mean, there have been lots of books that have helped along the way. I think that, and I'm repeating myself here, but I think a lot of it is just ensuring that your perspective is in the right spot. Understand that chapters come, chapters go. And when we looked at this house and we thought, can we do this? Should we do this? The one thing that I was able to tell myself in just the right way, at just the right time, that made all the difference, was I looked at the properties that we had. I looked at the cash flow, and I thought, and I hope this doesn't sound too arrogant, but I really did analyze the data, and I thought, people like me live in houses like this. If I'm not ready for this, if I can't do this, let's articulate what's missing. And there was nothing to articulate. Do we have too few buildings? Do we have major problems with the buildings? Is there something important that's missing? And there wasn't. Sooner or later, people who have portfolios similar to ours tend to do things like this. They also tend to be able to pay for them and tend to do well. And again, it's keeping everything in perspective. I've read many years ago, one thing that always stuck out for me, and this is just nothing. I'm sure other people read it and didn't think anything of it, but I was on probably Bigger Pockets like a number of years ago, and I remember someone on there was posting that one of their colleagues or associates bought 50 doors and bought a Bentley. And I just never forgot that. I thought, okay, so you get 50 doors and you can do a Bentley. And that's not, first of all, that's not exact. Second of all, that was American. They were talking many years ago when apartments cost less, the cap rates are probably higher, but then they were also lower rent apartments. So maybe 50 American apartments doesn't equal 50 Canadian apartments. Frankly, I think the guy got the car on financing. You can finance cars like for 10 to 12 years down there if they're exotic. Not really apples to apples, right? But again, I just never forgot this sort of thing. What do I need? What sort of income and what sort of assets do I need to back up what I'm doing? So are you like a vision board type person? Like, do you like draw out what you're going to accomplish in the year? Do you like, you know, do you set those big targets, or is it something that you kind of stumble into? I'm sure the audience at home would love to know. Well, that's a great question. I support vision boards. I don't actually have one, which some people might find surprising. I definitely appreciate that having a vision board, having something that you look at, or posting pictures or other things on the fridge can give you the constant reminders. But in a sense, I wanted to make my reminders a little more, let's say, organic. I wanted to, everything I want to achieve, everything I want to do, I need to know that and feel that rather intrinsically. So rather than saying, like, what am I doing again? Why did I get up again? Check the board. I need to know it on a deep level. So years before we got this house, I would look at houses like this. Without putting the list on paper, it turns out I had kind of a soft list of home features that I was interested in. Everything from what I like and dislike in terms of where garage doors are placed, to the fact that I wanted a complete irrigation system. I wanted lots of exterior lighting. Just things that I believe make a house great. Ceiling height. We're in the basement here, we still have 9-foot ceilings. Upstairs in the entryway, on one level, it's not a double floor, on one level we have 20-foot ceilings. I just intrinsically learned that that was what I wanted. And while it seems maybe less ideal than a vision board, what it does is, because it gets right inside you and you just know it cold, it also means you don't need to consult your board when the right thing comes along. So I saw this house and I thought, this checks the boxes. Like, I'm aware. I mean, I know my list. This fits my list. So again, vision boards are excellent, but I'm pretty happy doing it the way I've done it, and I think it's worked so far.
And so obviously it's not just the house that we love, but it's also the landscaping, all the amazing features out here. There's a lot of things we haven't even really got a chance to show the audience. But what I'd really love to learn next, Jon, is what's next?
Right. Well, we'll have to have you come back in the summer at some point as well. It's a little hard to see everything with the snow. We've got the YouTube pillow, which I love. I think it looks great in the snow. Again, as I've said a couple times now in the video, everything is about seasons, right? And about chapters, opening and closing. When we moved into this house, the first couple months, we're just getting used to it, getting settled, acknowledging that it was real.
Yeah.
Waking up every morning and realizing that it wasn't over, it wasn't a temporary dream. And so now we're comfortable, we're settled. The next step is just to keep growing the business. So we're going to make larger plays, plays where new skill sets are required. We have to continue to stay outside of our comfort zone, right? But ultimately we're going to improve, I'm going to improve my skills, but everyone on a team as a whole is going to become more knowledgeable, become more skilled at what they're doing, do a better job doing what they're doing. And as I said earlier, again in the video, people ask if this is our forever home. No, I definitely intend to continue scaling up, continue moving forward. I think that people who are able to stay outside of their comfort zone and continue to have those flex goals or push goals, or however you like to term it, I think that people like that tend to keep building. It's only natural. And the idea is that we do love what we do. We do enjoy the process. Retiring early is an option. Some people have tried it. You've tried it.
Yeah.
Mike Rosehart has tried it. At the end of the day, the friends and colleagues that I have, they tend not to just retire and go away. They tend to keep pushing and keep growing.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Everyone at home, I understand, it's the journey. There's not a specific destination in mind. This, again, for Jon, is just one more milepost along his journey that he'll be able to look back and reflect upon. But it's not one accomplishment that's going to give you satisfaction as a human being, guys. It's the consistent taking action, the consistent personal growth, and just really stepping outside your comfort zone. So I want to challenge everyone at home to jump in that comment section and let us know how in 2020 you're going to step outside of your comfort zone and grow as an individual. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's personal, maybe it's getting on stage and talking in front of a crowd. But I'd love for every single person watching this video to leave a comment down below and let us know, how are you going to grow this year, and how are you going to step outside your comfort zone?